Leadership isn't theory. It's pressure. Responsibility. Decisions that matter. This is the Real Leadership Brief. Conversations with leaders shaped by experience. Tested under pressure. And accountable for the outcome.
Welcome to the Real Leadership Brief. I am your host, Donald Dunn. Today's guest doesn't sell motivation, he sells discipline. Corey Disson is a high-performance coach, business strategist, and author of Going the Distance. And he's built everything in his life the hard way. One consistent, disciplined step at a time. No shortcuts, no fluff, just structure, execution, and results. If you're stuck and tired of excuses, this conversation is your wake-up call. Let's welcome Corey to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Corey?
Donald, my man, what is cooking, buddy? Good to see you.
Another day in the old media world, man. No big deal.
Right. That's right. Pushing the rock up the mountain.
That's it. You know, it's the best way to go. It keeps you grounded.
It's the only way I know how to do it.
So why don't we start with a little bit of background, man? Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I wish I was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, but I'm not. Now, my name is Corey Disson. I am a life and high performance coach. I've been doing that since 2018. For about 30 years prior to that, I was in the broadcast production industry as the vice president and general manager of a big studio in the Philadelphia market, and spent a lot of time with a lot of big names: Howard Stern, CNN, Philadelphia 76ers, Monster Jam. I can go on and on. Had the opportunity to do some really cool creative and manage a staff of producers doing that. And it just got to the point where it was time for me to be a little more fulfilled and, create some quality time with my family. So I started a little consulting business, and I help entrepreneurs get unstuck.
Yeah, that is something that is extremely common. And I think especially after COVID, entrepreneurs are now kind of, okay, we're sort of back on track. We're kind of doing our old thing again, but what did we learn and how do we move forward? And a lot of those types of questions and scenarios has kind of got people wondering. I owned a business prior to COVID, and I started a new business after COVID. And so I do believe that at the end of the day, there is a lot of people that are kind of stuck now and not sure where to go and what to do. What are some of the things that you like to start out with a new client? What are some of the topics that you're hearing them come to you with?
Well, I mean, the first thing I'll tell you is even before COVID, human behavior sucks. Okay. So it didn't matter what generation you come from, because sometimes they'll say, oh, this is a millennial thing, or it's a COVID thing, or no, it's human behavior. Human beings don't sign up to be uncomfortable. And usually that is the exit ramp whenever they're trying to tackle any big task or goal. As soon as it gets really hard, this ain't going to work, I'm out. So we spend a lot of time unwinding and untying that knot.
Yeah.
And then it usually boils down to, when I talk to someone for the first time, even kicking the tires or, starting off in our initial few sessions, I like to find out what their daily routine is. Because most times that is where the holes in the game live, is in the daily routine. I can tell a lot about someone by how they spend their morning.
Yeah. Yeah. That first thing that you said right there is, goes a long ways, that get out of your comfort zone. Because without doing that, growth doesn't happen. And I'm not even talking about just a company. I'm talking about as a person, as a human being. if you stay confined in that little area, you're never going to move forward. So whether it be that you're just trying to build leadership skills for a place that you work at, or whether you own your own business, that same thing applies.
100%. I mean, I tell everyone, whether I'm getting interviewed in a podcast, whether I'm posting content, whether I'm talking to a client one-on-one, anything worth having or doing requires pain and struggle.
Yeah.
Anything, whether you want to start a business, whether you want to lose weight or get in shape, a marriage, all those things require work and struggle and overcoming obstacles and dealing with taking a shot at whatever you're trying to achieve every day, day after day, and not having an immediate result. And that lack of gratification or lack of achievement often affects how hard someone really wants to work or how much they really want to achieve that goal. That's when you find out when the rubber, hits the road.
Yeah. You are absolutely correct. Well, let me ask you, you've led over 100,000 production projects. What are some of those lessons that you learned during your career there that you have carried over into your coaching career?
Subjectivity is real. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the best pieces of advice that I got early on in my production career, I happened to be, I had a really hair trigger temper, especially if folks owed us money.
Okay.
And I was giving this client the business and I was just tearing him a new one. And he said something to me, and however wrong he was spot on right with what he told me. And I carry this with me everywhere I go. No matter how thinly you slice an onion, there's always two sides.
Yeah.
And when you realize that, there's always, you never really know what the other side is experiencing. So yeah, the older I get, I'd like to think I'm a little longer in the tooth now. Obviously I have less hair and the hair I have is white. You can relate.
I can absolutely relate.
You develop the wisdom to do a lot more listening and hearing, not just hearing what the other person says. You listen and you digest, and then you make a decision. I wasn't always very good with that when I started. That was a skill I had to develop.
I can relate to that. Temper would have probably been my middle name if you were named after your emotions that carry you, because I do as well have a temper, and sometimes when I was younger, I did that same thing. I would get in the middle of fighting for the side that I thought was right, to only find out that the other side was also right, or even more right. And it becomes difficult.
You learn. I mean, an analogy I like to use, and I don't know how much of a movie fan you are, but what I think is one of the best, not only movies of all time, but also an entrepreneurial lesson, is The Godfather.
Okay.
And I came up more as Sonny and learned how to be Michael.
Okay. Yeah.
Sonny, hair trigger temper, big mouth, swinging a fist very quickly at the drop of a hat. Michael is very calculated, very deliberate, quiet. And sometimes that quiet way of conducting yourself is often the loudest scream.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something I noticed whenever I was in a board meeting or just a meeting with all the company leaders. The ones that just sat there and kind of digested and listened to what other people say, I found myself paying more attention to them. And
got to watch out for those guys.
Yeah. And when they finally did speak, 9 times out of 10, they were correct. And they had a good point, and they were able to professionally put it out there. And so I agree with you. The person that can stand back, listen, digest, think, and then respond is going to go a long ways.
And fast forward into how that's carried into the coaching and how I deal with my clients. The translation now in 2026 is learn to take action minus emotion. Action minus emotion, because it's often entrepreneurs, human beings make decisions based upon how they feel. They don't feel like doing something. They feel tired. They feel stressed. They feel overwhelmed. The action does not get taken. What we work on when you become a member of Go Get It Nation, you work on taking that action minus emotion, having the discipline to take care of the things that needed to be done no matter how you feel.
Well, would you say that also another emotion that plays a big role in that is fear? Not just anger. Yeah. So how would you recommend to some of your clients that are dealing with that side of it? Because those people you have to respond a little bit differently to than somebody who you're fighting anger with.
The biggest, most effective exercise that I deploy with someone who is just crippled with fear. And we're not talking like fear like a horror movie, but fear of reaching out to someone new or fear of putting out content for their business, things like that. What I'll tell them is the first thing they understand is nothing that they do while they work with me is done solo. They have a co-pilot, this guy, me. So when they reach that point where, and we figure it out, because usually something doesn't get done, I call them out on it. I say why, and then they give me their long-winded answer, but it just turns out that they're afraid or they have apprehension. So what I figuratively do is I grab them by the wrist or the shoulder or the ear or whatever it is, and we walk up that ladder and we walk out to that diving board together and we jump. So I'm helping them write the content. I am giving them tips on how to reach out to that executive that they have put on this pedestal and have this inferiority complex that they can't communicate with because they're afraid they're going to get shot down. I help write that note for them and we do it together and they hit send with me on the phone and it gets done so that they know once that action is taken, I'll even say to them, go look outside, and they'll I can just see even if I'm not on a Zoom, we'll be on a phone call. I just know they're looking at me like the RCA dog, like, what? Look outside. What do you mean? I say, go. Where's your nearest window? I say, take the phone with you and go look out the window. And I say, okay. They humor me. I could hear them walking and okay, I'm looking out the window. I said, what color is the sky? And they say, blue. Is the sun up? Yes. Did it fall on you? No.
This episode is brought to you by Barracks Media, where your online presence becomes a real asset. Barracks Media builds professional websites for podcasters, creators, authors, and small businesses who are ready to be taken seriously. Not templates, not cookie-cutter pages, real platforms built to grow with you. Whether you're launching a podcast, promoting a book, or building a brand, your website should work as hard as you do. We design sites that convert listeners into followers and followers into clients. Visit barracksmedia.com and turn your idea into a home on the web.
Are there police banging at your door right now? I'm trying to show them that they could do it without this chicken little worry.
Yeah.
That there's going to be some consequence or catastrophic result because they did it, because a lot of that is created in that person's mind. All the overthinking that happens, and that's what makes them afraid. And I just cut right through all that and go, boom, let's go do it. And 99 times out of 100, that's pretty effective because they know that someone has their back, and I'm forcing them to confront this situation that has scared them really for no reason. And when they figure it out, like, oh man, that wasn't so bad, then they're more apt to do it the right way themselves next time.
Yeah, I think, the other part of that, sometimes that fear also comes from, maybe even before you were an entrepreneur, the things that were embedded to you by either the people that raised you, your friends, whatever, that are maybe they're giving you advice trying to look out for you, but it's not necessarily the best advice you're getting, just because they say, hey, if you do this, you could go bankrupt. And then, that puts your dreams on hold, because now I'm afraid if I do this, they said I might go bankrupt, when the truth is there's risk in anything you do. There's risk in walking across the street, it's not a reason why you don't do it. It's just you mitigate that risk, and it's just extra steps, extra preparation, primarily with maybe a coach, somebody that's been through the scenario and can help them navigate some of those risks and reduce them so that they can get over that fear and still continue to move on.
100%. I mean, I have two thoughts based upon what you just said there, because you made a lot of great points. I tell people, don't take constructive criticism from people that never constructed anything. Because most of the time you're going to get those seeds of doubt planted by people that haven't done nothing. Haven't done anything.
Yeah.
They haven't done what you want to do. They just may not approve of what you're doing. So then they're going to try to shoot it down.
Yep.
And the other thought, I had a really good, compelling argument I was going to make, and I just totally brain farted. So maybe it'll come back to me later in the conversation. But this is live, ladies and gentlemen.
So let's dig into a little bit about your fitness studio, right? You built a private fitness studio, debt free, with 200 clients. How did you do that? And I'm sure there's principles that went into that have gone into your coaching methods as well.
For sure. So, I mean, look, like I said, my full-time position was running a production company, but I always had to have a mission. I was always very driven. I wasn't a guy that watched a lot of TV, or, I had to be doing something, whether that was working out or just going after some accomplishment. I was addicted to, I still am addicted to accomplishment. And, being a gym rat, here I am, 2008, heart of the recession, economy's in the toilet. And I'm working out at my local gym, and I see one person after another incorrectly performing certain exercises. And I'm worried they're going to get hurt. So I started to I kind of just butted my way in, and I would say, hey, when you do exercise X, hold your hands this way, or hold the weight this way, or be careful, go whatever. I would give them suggestions on how to improve that. And, my wife said to me one day, well, geez, you keep giving out all this free advice. You ought to start charging for it. So then I got this wacky idea that I'm going to become a personal trainer. Now, keep in mind, I'm a lifelong gym rat, no formal certification. Just, I was an athlete in high school, and I was always that guy that picked heavy things up and put them down, pretty jacked guy, still in my 50s. And I said, I'll see if I can get 10 clients to pay me. Just going around to got women and men at my local gym saying, hey, you want some help with that? And I charged them, a pittance. It wasn't a whole lot of money. Well, I wound up getting a dozen. And then that turned into, I can't train at my local gym anymore. I'm going to need to get my own place. And I got a little 400 square foot little studio with some secondhand equipment that I paid for in cash, didn't finance it. Like I said, bought it on the cheap. Was it the top of the line stuff? No, but it was heavy, and you had to pick it up, and it made you stronger. So that was my criteria. Business kept growing. I wound up having to hire junior trainers that I would delegate. I would get the business, but I was only one man. I couldn't train, all these people at the same time.
Yeah. And,
it got to the point where I went from a 400 square foot studio to a 1,500 square foot studio with 2 rooms. I had a massage room. I had 6 trainers working for me. We were doing boot camps and yoga classes. It was a whole big operation. And for the last year and a half that I had the business, I didn't train a single client. All I did was write the paychecks and clean the toilets. I learned a lot of great lessons with that. I mean, how to market a brick and mortar business in the recession.
Yeah.
And we made money, debt free. It was insane. And I was doing that while running a whole other company. So there was marketing lessons. There was lessons in how to better interview people, because I was interviewing trainers. I was interviewing clients. I was learning the sales process with that type of business. and really learning what it meant, because the business was called Train with Corey. It was me. They were buying me, my philosophy, my energy. And that's how I learned. I took all that with me to operate a personal brand and to grow that. And I'm not sitting here with you today if I didn't do all that. You
Yeah.
wouldn't find me the least bit interesting if I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. I'd just be another bald schmuck lifting weights, And so like all those things I learned because I had to put myself out there, whether it was on social media, whether it was going to local, like the Lions Club or the Little League meeting, or and doing presentations, so to get networking mixers, all these things, learning how to get my rap down, and how to do the spiel and to get people to come in. And I had signage and all these experiments and things I failed at and swung and missed, and we figured out what worked. And I wound up selling the business in 2013 for a pretty nice sum of money that put my kid through 4 years of private school. So I was not unhappy at that experiment, even though it was a lot of long hours because I was working 5 a.m. to like 8 a.m. there, then working a full-time job after that, then going back, training people at night, weekends. I didn't have a 5-day work week until I was in my 40s. And I don't regret it because, like I said, made a lot of money, a lot of great experience, taught me how to personal brand, and used that as sort of the blueprint when I started my consulting business.
Yeah. And even with a success story like that, right? Every entrepreneur looks at those types of stories and says, hey, I want to be able to do that. Or they watch, Shark Tank, and they see these guys coming in and doing their thing, and they're like, I want to do that as well. And at the end of the day, getting stuck is still very easily done. And what are some of the things that cause capable people to actually get stuck and then kind of become stagnant?
Well, the first thing is when they figure out no matter how good they are at their craft or their service, they could be the most excellent technician at whatever, or tactician, whatever they do, and the business isn't coming. That they remain frozen. It's a vicious cycle because most people are conditioned to think if I'm really good, then it sells itself. And I'm here to tell you that is the biggest bunch of BS you could ever imagine. Because take me, for example, no certification. I didn't go to school to be a personal trainer. I didn't claim to be the best personal trainer. I didn't have a degree in physical therapy or biomechanics or any of that kind of stuff. I just created relationships with people. They bought me. I had to be on, not I can show you the best bench press. Although there was that element that they're going to get solid exercise advice. But in order for them to spend at the level they were spending, we're not talking Planet Fitness at $9 a month.
Yeah.
These people were spending thousands of dollars with me. And in order to do that, they got to buy into what you're selling. By the way, remember I told you I had a brain fart on? I remembered it.
Okay.
Human beings, especially in the United States, are not taught to be entrepreneurs. You are conditioned from a young age to be subservient to somebody else. When you're in grade school, middle school, high school, you're basically taught you are told you must show up at this time. You must be at this place at this time. You must do this work and have it complete by such and such a date. And all you're taught is how to be a really good employee, because that's how it is. When you're managed by someone else, you just replace teacher, principal with manager, owner.
Yeah.
And you're the same, dumb as a box of rocks student. To be an entrepreneur, guess what? You got to make all those decisions yourself. When to show up, what work to do, when it must be done. That's all. Like we're conditioned to be uncomfortable trying to rule over ourselves. Everybody says, I want to work for myself. I want to be independent.
This show is part of the Barracks Media Network, built by veterans, creators, and storytellers who believe stories change lives. Barracks Media produces podcasts, books, and digital content that amplify voices worth hearing. We help creators launch, grow, and monetize their message without losing their soul. If you've got a story in you, or a show in your head, go to barracksmedia.com and start building something that lasts.
But when they figure out that, holy crap, this is really hard, there's a lot more than I thought that I had to do here, because they didn't learn it. They didn't learn it when you went to school. Even, look, I love the military. I love the military. My dad was in the military. I'm very regimented in everything I do. But even there, you're told, report here, do this, do that. You have to obey the chain of command. That's not for entrepreneurship. I mean, the regiment and discipline is,
Right.
but not the freedom of thought to get things done 100% independently. Make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So that was the point I wanted to make earlier in the discussion. Forgive me. It just sort of came back to me. The older I get, sometimes thoughts escape me.
Well, that's actually a good segue into the next question.
Sure.
So with that being said, when life hits you, how do you train yourself to get back up? Because that's really what too many entrepreneurs, and I hear this over and over again. Well, I failed. No, you didn't. You ran into an opportunity. You're choosing not to accept that opportunity. And that opportunity is to learn from the lesson that went wrong, build on it, move forward, and continue to grow. You just learned the wrong way to do something. It didn't work. You tried it. It happens to everybody. Take that opportunity and move forward. But why is that so hard for some entrepreneurs to look at, and they just seem to stop when they fail?
I mean, there's a few reasons for that. I mean, some of that could literally be upbringing. I mean, I know I can speak for myself. My parents insisted on me being self-reliant, insisted on me thinking independently. And I was forced to handle things myself, because they always said, you need to be able to handle yourself when you don't live under my roof.
Yeah.
So some of it's nurturing. I mean, I could even recall, and I wrote about it in my book, I had a problem with a teacher when I was a sophomore in high school. And I told my mom, who was a career teacher, I said, hey, we're having this issue, and maybe we should do a parent-teacher conference. And she said, oh, well, okay, sure. There'll be a conference, but it won't be a parent-teacher conference. It'll be a student-teacher conference. You will have to schedule it. You will have to go after school, and you will have to talk it out with your teacher. So that was a huge lesson right there. It's like,
Yeah.
you got to strap on a pair, buddy, and you got to handle this. And I did, because I was scared to death meeting with this woman who I didn't agree with anyway. But, we got a chance to say our piece, and the dust was settled, and the rest of the year went fine. But I learned that you have to confront things. And my parents were, a big reason for that. Look, some of it's the culture. We live in an instant gratification culture.
Yeah.
We live in a participation trophy culture. Just because you did it means you deserve recognition. What? That's not how life works.
Yeah.
You have to actually achieve something to win.
Yep.
So, you have a little bit of how you're brought up towards, the culture plays a part in that. And then it ultimately, honestly, Donald, it boils down to how much you really want it.
Yeah. I think that's it right there.
If you really want it, you'll take some punches.
Yep.
I mean, Lord knows I've gotten my ass beat literally and figuratively along the way. But I said, I want it. I'm going to keep, taking the punishment. And I'm one of these knuckleheads that took Rocky serious. That spoke to me. I'm that bum from the neighborhood. I'm from Philly, so I get all that. My wife, she grew up blocks from where Adrian's pet store was. We take that real serious, brother.
Yeah.
And, when you have that, when you're a champion of the underdog, which is something that my old man drilled into my head too, you're not done. You're not done until you're done. You keep fighting,
Yeah.
And like I said, my parenting, the way I was brought up, big part of that. And look, I'm pretty effing stubborn too. I don't like losing. I'm a sore loser, man.
Yep.
I'm going to keep
very type A personality as well.
100%. 100%. I mean, some people will say he's driven. Others people will say that he's a real jerk. Whatever.
Yep, absolutely. 100. I agree 100%.
I mean, look at my shirt, dude. I wear this in public. Can you know the eyeballs that I get in public when I wear this?
I can imagine.
I'm cursing without cursing, which is amazing.
Yep.
But that I have all kinds of stuff like this because I'm forever just kind of saying, "Hey guys, wake up! You need to kind of act right, and this is how it's supposed to be." And thank goodness, like I said, I'm not a small individual. Most people think I just got out of prison or I drive a forklift or something like that. They don't know that I got a brain between my ears and I'm a successful entrepreneur. But the packaging helps.
I agree 100%. And you kind of answered this, but I have to ask because I am a huge George Foreman fan.
Okay, cool.
He is without a doubt, in my opinion, the best boxer that has ever fought. I know people can disagree with me, and
he can hit.
He absolutely can, and had the most unique style of blocking. Was very religious. Named all of his kids George. And at the end of the day, I have to ask the question just because I seen it in your profile. But
sure.
What are some of the things that separates people like George Foreman, Joe Frazier, and those kind of champions that came from tough grounds and successfully made it. And I don't mean just in the sports world. We could do the same thing in the corporate world,
100%.
That same personality. And you did kind of answer it. It's kind of that type A personality, but do you think there's a little bit more to that, or really do you think it is just that driven, and how bad do you want it?
Well, I'm gonna share with you a story and tell you a lesson that I learned directly in person from George Foreman.
Okay.
Because I had the pleasure of being in his company. Joe Frazier too, but that's a whole different story. The story about George Foreman is, and I'll try to encapsulate it as tight as I can. At one point in my production company career, we were based at the Philadelphia Classic Rock Station. Okay, it was WYSP Radio. That's where our studios were located. We shared studios. And my office was right next door to the afternoon guy, a legendary broadcaster by the name of John DeBella. So, and he was a comedian. His whole show was a lot of shtick and whatnot. And we would trade jokes and things. And anyway, there at one point, a lot of the sales staff would mill around, and there was one little skinny sales guy, and he used to always talk a lot of smack, and he wanted to arm wrestle me. And DeBella caught wind of this. There's a point to all this. Just bear with me.
I'm with you.
DeBella caught wind of this, and he thought it was just hysterical that this little guy, 140 pounds soaking wet, was going to challenge me to an arm wrestling match. So what did John do? He made a bit out of it on the air. He had us come out, and we did like entrance music. And, it was like a professional wrestling hype thing. And we do, I'm going to get you, brother, and all that kind of stuff. And we did the arm wrestling match. And I squashed the guy in like a second. It wasn't even a contest. And, I'm in my early 20s at this point. And I say to John after the show, I said, listen, because I'm young and dumb and, full of blah, blah, blah. And I said, hey, man, you ever want to win a bet? You bet on me in arm wrestling. I never lost. Okay, fast forward 6 months. He calls me into his office. He said, hey, Corey, remember what you told me about arm wrestling? And I immediately go into the cocky, oh, yeah, I've never lost at arm wrestling. You want to bet some money? And he goes, I want you to flip over the cover of that book because that's who you're going to arm wrestle today on the air. He flips it over. It's George Foreman. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Because I'm a boxing nerd too. I love George and Muhammad Ali and all those 70s champs I was a huge fan of.
Yeah.
So I'm starstruck, like a little fanboy, number one. And he said, yeah, he's going to come in. I'm interviewing him today. You're going to sit in the studio the whole time. And at the end, you guys are going to arm wrestle. And I'm like, Holy crap. You got to be kidding me. So I go into the studio and there's George Foreman, the largest human being I've ever stood next to. I'm a big guy. Okay. He made me look small.
Yeah.
Shook his hand. The man's got walnuts for knuckles.
Yeah.
And I have very large hands. And it was like a baby in his hand. He shook my hand, sat there during the show. The man ate 3/4 pounders with cheese during the show. That was a big gimmick for him at that point. And then at the end of the interview, he asks George, he said, what would you say to somebody who says they can never be beaten at anything? Now, if you know your history with George, that was kind of how he acted before he fought Muhammad Ali. And what did Muhammad Ali do? Knocked him out.
Yep.
So this is what George Foreman's answer was. He said, I would tell that young man, and by that time he got a hint that they were talking about me. I would tell that young man, still not looking at me, that he's either real young or real dumb. And that taught me about humility.
Yeah.
You got to have a little bit of humility. Now, I'm as cocky as they come. I'm confident. I got plenty of swagger. I'm not intimidated by any man. But he taught me about humility. And I carry that with me everywhere I go. On a side note, a little postscript, he didn't arm wrestle me. Because, he was still fighting. And basically it was, God forbid if he hurt me or I twisted his arm or something.
Yeah.
Whole lot of money was at stake.
Yep.
But as we were walking out of the air studio, he tapped me on the shoulder. He was walking behind me. He said, hey, man, I know we couldn't arm wrestle, but let's take some pictures like we did. So we got some pictures, and me and him are standing there like this. I got that picture somewhere. I'll have to send it to you. And that was a landmark moment in the Corey Disson history book. I was just, wow, that was so cool. So cool. So there's my George Foreman story.
I could picture him saying that too, because you were right. He was very proud of himself before, he had ever lost. And I think I could see that fight would have taught him some what is the right word?
Humility. Yeah, it was humility. I mean, that was the big thing. Just, learn to be humble. And sometimes you just got to tip your cap to somebody and go, you got me beat, dude. You got me beat. All right. That's how it is. And, it all ties together with what we're talking about, because there is a man who got knocked out on his back, embarrassed in front of millions of people.
Yep.
And even walked away from that career for years because he was ashamed.
Yeah.
Now he found religion. He turns his life around, and winds up coming back and winning the heavyweight championship again, which was, just an emotional ride for him and the country at that time. And look, that tells you you're never down. Age is just a number. You believe in yourself. I mean, so many people told him he was crazy for doing that. And, he was hated. He was not loved as the heavyweight champion. He was the bad guy.
Yep.
In that whole thing. And he turned out to be one of the most beloved professional athletes, if not human beings, on the planet.
Yeah.
When it was all said and done, because he just, that wasn't an act, what you saw in his second half of life, after he won the heavyweight champion, how he was smiling and glib and joking. And that was him. Like I said, I stood next to the man and had a conversation with him. And that was him. I mean, what an honor. What an honor.
Absolutely. Well, Corey, if you don't mind, can you tell everybody where can they find you and maybe book a call with you and learn a little bit more about what you're doing?
No, I appreciate that. That's also on the shirt too. It's in small print right there, but I'll say it out loud. It's CoreyDisson.com, CoreyDissin.com. And I always like to joke, I'm a marketing guy. If you Google me and you can't find me, I'm the wrong guy. But I'm real easy to find. I'm big on the social media, LinkedIn especially. That's my jam. But I'm on the big four: Instagram, X, Facebook, and I'm dabbling in TikTok a little too, where the kids like to live, but I'm having some fun there too. But there you go, CoreyDisson.com.
All right. We'll make sure that we get the links down there in the bottom and make it super simple for everybody to find you. Corey, I had a great time. I think anybody that listens to this is going to get something out of it. And I think in going forward, this is one of the main reasons for the show, the Leadership Brief, is to let people know there is help out there. If you're an entrepreneur or just in a management position, you're trying to build your career. Coaches out there are available. You're going to get some firsthand information on this show and learn about what some of these people are doing and how to reach out to them. I can't dial the number for you. It's up to you guys to reach out. So go check Corey out at his website and reach out to him, have a conversation and see if it's the right fit, and get yourself unstuck. That's the main feature right there. So all of you guys, take care. Don't forget, man, don't let the day kick your ass. Kick the day's ass.
You've been listening to The Real Leadership Brief, a podcast from the Barracks Media Network. Thanks to our guests for sharing their experience, and thank you for listening. You can find more conversations like this across the Barracks Media Network. We'll see you next time.